Hi everyone, welcome back to Deep Dive Daily. Okay, so the story of Jeffrey Epstein has always felt like it was hiding something big, right? So many secrets, so many powerful names. But now, with his personal files finally being released, those secrets are coming out. And let me tell you, what they show is a story that's not just about one man's horrific crimes, but about the whole powerful system that protected him.
Okay, so let's start with what everyone was told. Here we have a super clear, firm denial from one of the most powerful people on the planet, a line drawn in the sand. This is the official story we were all meant to believe. But then you see his actual emails straight from the files, and whoa, it's a completely different story. It's not a refusal at all. It's literally a request to find the wildest party on the island. This massive gap between what people say in public and what they do in private, well, it's a pattern that basically defines this entire story.
So here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll look at these public denials versus the private realities. Then we're going to map out the insane web of power around him, look at the creepy coded language they used, and finally, we'll ask the big question. What does this all tell us about the system itself?
All right, let's dive right into that core theme. This giant, gaping hole between what Epstein's friends said out loud and what the files prove they were actually doing behind the scenes.
Let's take the case of Bill Gates. Publicly, his story is solid, right? I never went to the island, I never met any women. A total, complete denial. But then, on the other hand, you have his ex-wife, Melinda. She talks about her sadness for the victims, wondering how did that happen to them? It really suggests she heard a completely different story behind closed doors.
And these individual stories, they start to add up fast, painting a much bigger picture. This wasn't just a couple of isolated people. What the files show is this huge, sprawling web of global power that stayed connected to Epstein long after he was a convicted sex offender.
And I mean, just look at how wide this network was. It wasn't just one industry. It was everywhere. Tech, politics, science, the arts, global finance, literally every single pillar of our society. These are the people who are shaping our world.
The numbers here are just staggering. A former Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Barak, shows up over 4,000 times. The famous director, Woody Allen, over 7,000 times. Tech giant Peter Thiel, over 2,000. These are not just casual meetups, you know? This is proof of deep, ongoing contact way after his crimes were public. And you start to see these little clusters, these cliques. For instance, the so-called PayPal Mafia, a super tight-knit group from Silicon Valley that includes Musk, LinkedIn's co-founder Reid Hoffman and Peter Thiel. They all show up again and again, lying about how well they knew Epstein while privately meeting with him, visiting his island, and even doing business with him.
So you're probably asking, how did this actually work? How do you hide something this massive in plain sight? Well, the files give us this chilling look into how Epstein's world operated, where truly horrible things were hidden behind really mundane, coded language.
One of the most disturbing things to come out is the code word they used, snacks. And no, this wasn't about food. It was a term that Epstein and his staff used to request young women and girls for sexual purposes. It's just chilling.
And if you had any doubt what that meant, this email just lays it all out. His staff literally had to ask if he meant actual food or the code word. I asked if he wanted lunch, and he said no, snacks. It's such a horrifying example of an open secret, a system where everyone knew exactly what was going on, all hidden behind this thin veil of code.
And honestly, sometimes they didn't even bother with the code. The files have direct, awful references to child trafficking, emails talking about your littlest girl, and even images that are explicitly labeled with the age of the child. The evidence is just sickeningly clear.
You know, an operation this big needs money. A lot of money. And that's where the big banks come in. JP Morgan processed over $1 billion for Epstein, and they did it while ignoring their own internal warnings over and over. They knew they were enabling him, which they basically admitted when they settled with his victims for $290 million.
So this all leads to the biggest, most important question of all. Why did nobody get held accountable? The files don't just reveal a list of crimes. They reveal a system that is built from the ground up to protect the powerful. Just look at this timeline. This is what's so wild. He gets convicted in 2008, and then nothing. For his inner circle, it's business as usual. Musk is emailing about island parties, Ehud Barak is meeting him constantly, Reid Hoffman and Peter Thiel are visiting him and investing with him. His conviction wasn't a stop sign, it wasn't even a speed bump.
And it's not like the authorities don't have evidence. We're talking about 14.6 terabytes of material that the FBI admits they have. To give you an idea, that is a mind-boggling amount of data. It's more than the entire print collection of the Library of Congress. Insane.
And yet, here's the kicker. Even with that mountain of evidence, 70 to 80% of the files are still blacked out. And the official word from the Department of Justice, after all this, they said they found no co-conspirators to charge. The contradiction is just unbelievable. Now, a quote recounted by Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene about a call with Donald Trump offers one possible explanation for the silence. She allegedly pushed him to release the files, and the response wasn't about justice or truth. It was, "My friends will get hurt." It suggests the silence isn't a bug in the system, it's a feature.
You know, we're all taught to believe that the system works, that justice is blind. But the Epstein files provide the clearest proof I've ever seen that for a certain level of elite power and money, the rules that you and I live by, they just don't apply. The system isn't broken. It worked exactly the way it was designed to. And that leaves us with this final, really chilling question. If we can now see that there's a system perfectly designed to protect its own, to shield the powerful from any consequences, we have to ask the opposite. Who then is that same system designed to work against? Smash that like button if you enjoyed this, share it around, and subscribe for more. Drop a comment below with your views. I read every single one.